go to prison. Like, I'm not afraid of prison. I feel like I'm resilient and I'm a survivor. Like, I have those qualities, those things. I would be fine. I worked in a prison, so I know how it goes. You know, I would survive. But the time away from kids, I'm a grandma driver.
Not always you drive the driver that pays.
The idea of losing them and missing time with them, milestones, and them going to live with their dad, and the unknown of like, am I gonna get them back when I get out, completely terrifies me, rips my heart out.
I was a hostage at home because of my ex-husband, but the hostage situation started way before that. My childhood seemed happy from the outside, but it was much different inside the walls of our trailer. I was a really happy little girl. My mom used to call me a ham all of the time. Lots of smiling, posed for a picture anytime I could get a chance to. Have a brother, an older brother, 5 years older than me, and my parents were married, and we were a pretty normal family, but not wealthy. As I said, we lived in a trailer, and I got the term trailer trash called to me from time to time, but I didn't care about that. If you've ever played hide and go seek in a trailer park as a child, it's the most fun you could ever have. So I didn't mind. But I have very unusual things that maybe are not normal to most kids, although I do think it's more prevalent than we realize, child sexual assault. I worked my entire life to get out of here. I learned how to ride a bicycle in that driveway right there, where all those trees are. That's where I learned how to ride a bike. When I was little, I have really specific memories that pop out in my head, being a toddler and toddling into my parents' bedroom and nosing around, doing whatever toddlers do. And I recall seeing stacks and stacks and stacks of pornography in my father's closet. So my little brain was exposed quickly to images that I should not have ever seen. And I recall many times going to hit the play button on the VCR thinking Aladdin would come up on the TV screen in the living room, but instead it would be a pornography. My father didn't have a lot to do with us. In fact, he posted up in the corner of our trailer, always wearing his robe, always having his coffee, and he was on the computer all of the time. I used to make plans of how I was going to get out of this town. This is where I used to hear my parents fight. Now I heard my mother get abused. Around the age of 10, I remember coming in from outside and seeing my mother have a knife to his throat, and she told us to go back outside. They announced on Valentine's Day that they would be getting a divorce. Their divorce was finalized on April Fool's Day. He actually entered into a relationship with my babysitter, another young girl, but she was of age now. I remember him leaving when they got divorced, and I remember playing outside and seeing him sad to leave. And I remember being confused. Why were you sad? You never spent any time with us. That memory stuck out to me, and he drove away the next year, really. My mother had her father pass away, and just the stress of a divorce. She had a lot of her own demons, and it was really rough. It was really rough with her. It was lots of turmoil with her, my brother, and I. And my brother requested to go live with our father. And so she became very angry. And I was told to go live with him too. If my brother wanted to go live with him, then I should go live with him too. Oh yeah, my stomach just sank. Yeah, this isn't my first time here, actually. Wow, I did not expect to get emotional. I was very first molested in those apartments right there. And I have not been here since I was 11. He began he had a fancy camera, and he began making suggestions of taking pictures of me, just normal ones. And then he would start showing me pictures of little girls and their fathers together, normal pictures. And then he would start telling me I was beautiful and I should be a model. This is where the real nightmare started. I was right there in those apartments. The body keeps the score. I keep saying that, but it's funny how I was like, I don't even know if I'll recognize them. And then as soon as I saw them, like my whole body reacted. He wanted me to take my shirt off for a picture in just my bra. And I remember thinking that's weird, but he just kept promoting the idea that it was because he made me. He thought I was beautiful. He loved me. There was nothing perverse about it. And eventually I gave in, and it was nothing different than a swimsuit. So I did. But in that moment, my life was changed forever because I felt disgusting. I was 11. So summer before 6th grade, he informed me that if I ever told anybody about this encounter, that I would ruin the family, my mother and my brother would hate me, and everyone would think I was wrong.
I've known Shauna really probably most of her life, probably since the time she was either kindergarten or 1st grade. My son is the same age as Shauna. I really got to know Shauna better when she was around 12 years old because she was in a play called Tom Sawyer. I was the president of the Rancho Theater Group. I was on the board or president on and off for probably 15 years. And the first time I met Shauna's father, I don't think I officially ever met him, but the very first memory I have of him is daunting and haunting in that I remember when she took her bow in the play Tom Sawyer when she was 12 years old. I remember him at curtain call bringing her a big bouquet of flowers. And at the time I thought, oh, that was nice, that he cared enough to bring his daughter flowers. And then when everything came out of the horrific things that he had done to Shauna, that memory sickened me. I can see it, and I'm old, I don't have a great memory, but I can see it just like it was yesterday. I have a few bad memories in my life and that I can remember like they were yesterday. One of them is seeing my father get killed when I was 13 years old. I watched him get killed in front of me. The other is this. That's how bad it affected me once I found out about how sick that man was and what he had done that day. Shauna was amazing in that, I don't know how long it went on. I think 2 or 3 years maybe. You would have never known. She was she masked it very well. She was a bubbly, normal child. She was popular in school. She had lots of friends. Everyone liked Shauna. And how she acted, the face that she put on to the public it's amazing, yet makes me even sadder that she was hiding that nightmare experience that she went through.
Because they just didn't understand what real love looked like between a father and a daughter. And in that following, it quickly escalated because now he had me. This is it. This is where I lived when I was being molested by my father. This is where the torture happened. I remember we had a Halloween party here, and I was allowed to invite all my friends, and he invited his friends, and we had a keg. Even when everybody was here and we were celebrating Halloween, he took me behind the house and molested me when everybody was here. But he made me perform sexual acts right in the middle of my party. Basically in front of everybody, but nobody knew. And my neighbor lived right there, who taught me how to put on makeup, and I almost told her 100 times. One night in particular. And she knew something was wrong. He had the secret. He did not think I would ever tell a soul, because I was petrified of him at the time, scared of my mother, and too embarrassed to say anything to my brother. I mean, he had made movies of me and films and pictures and all these things, and had sex toys and outfits he made me wear and all of these things. My grades started to slip. I remember sitting in class, just couldn't think of anything else other than this photo session that we had. And he began to take more pictures. They became nude pictures. And at that point, I was his sexual prisoner for the next 3 years. And if I refused an order of his, he would take away my clothes. So I didn't have the good clothes to wear to school. And he would take away my items in my bedroom that I liked. But if I did what he said, I would have the best of the best. And I had the bedroom any preteen girl could ever dream of. He bought a tripod and put his camera on there and taught me how to use it. And it became an order every other day for the remainder of the time until I told, so about 2.5 years or so. I was to take 3 sets of pictures. There's 20 pictures in a set. So 20, 40, 60 pictures a night of myself, naked, in just various positions, and hand them over to him. And I did it. So once the naked pictures started, I was just trapped in my brain and not myself and not in my own skin. It did become physically abusive outside of the sexual abuse eventually. When I was in 7th grade, the summer after my 7th grade year, a boy touched me and he got wind of it. I mean, if I held hands with a boy, he would lose his mind. If I talked on the phone to a boy, he would lose his mind. At one point, he pretended to be a boy my age on AIM just to talk to me, to see if I would talk back. And so he was very controlling in that way. Well, he found out that I had held hands with a boy and kissed him even. And he became physically abusive that night. And then the next day, he kept me home from school. He went to work. And I cannot recall the amount of times I had to write this sentence, but the sentence was, I will not be a slut and I will learn to be a better daughter. And I had to handwrite it over and over and over again. And I had from the time he left work until the time he got home to write however many sentences this was. It was in the hundreds, I know that. My hand cramped. I sat at the kitchen table terrified because if I did not finish, he was going to spank me with his belts and God knows what else. And I completed it, but it was terrifying. But those types of things began to happen to me. And he would pull me out of school sometimes just to assault me. The teachers would be like, oh, you have such a great dad. He's taking you out to lunch, daughter-daddy date. Valentine's Day, he'd always bring flowers and some kind of gift to the school. And I think my first recollection was in 7th grade. He made me dance naked for him. And he sat in my room on my blow-up couch and proceeded to masturbate, which he didn't tell me he was going to do or anything, but I was really scared of him. He's a big guy. People were scared of him. And I remember wanting to throw up, but telling myself not to stop because I was afraid of the consequences of stopping. So I went years of being sexually molested in every way except for actual sexual intercourse. Everything else had happened. In 2001. It was speech competitions. I went and did those. I competed, and he didn't come because he never did. But afterwards, I called him and said, can I go over to Elena's house to play? And he said, yes, but you need to be home by 3, and you know why. And I had this strong gut feeling, or God telling me not to go home because I knew my life would be forever changed. I believe that day he was going to rape me. I still feel it. I get the goosebumps thinking of it now. And I told my friend's mom. I told her to go get her mom, and I told her mom what was happening. And like a little angel, that woman said she was obviously going to call the police or go do the right thing, but she still put the control back in my hands and said, I need your permission to help you. And I said, please help me. And the next thing I know, I was on my way to the police station telling them everything. He had convinced me that she never called me. I hadn't seen her. I hadn't talked to her, very, very minimally. And at this point, our relationship was nearly non-existent. And the police showed up. So I was still at the police station. The police showed up to her house with her boyfriend, and it's a small town. So they said, hey, Ange, you have to come with us. We need to talk to you. And she's like, what's going on? They won't tell her what's going on. She finally agrees to go to the police station. They pull her to the side there and they say, there's been an accusation that your ex-husband has been sexually molesting your daughter, Shauna. And she said, there's no way that that's true. Like, my ex-husband's an a-hole, but there's no way he would ever do that. I want to know who said this.
And they're like, well, actually, this accusation came from your daughter. And, oh my God, so many years, and still I remember I was standing there, and it was just like they punched me in the stomach. And I dropped to my knees, and 2 officers grabbed me, and I was like, oh my God. And they said, it's okay, she's downstairs, she's safe. But she made an accusation against her father, and I just started sobbing, and I lost it, and they let Bob come in, and I said, just bring her to me, bring her to me. It's like, I need her so bad. And they went down and they got her and brought her up, and Bob said, we're taking her home. And I just needed her with me so bad. And they went and got my baby, and we took her home, and I just held her, and I was so sorry that I couldn't. I couldn't protect her, and I never doubted a word that she said, because she's my child.
She believed me, and that was important, even though we didn't have much of a relationship at the time. And I will always remember that she believed me.
I wanted so badly to protect her, and I failed. It was a horrible day. But it was also her saving day, because we took her home.
This house. And I love that house.
She was with us, and she was safe.
Her boyfriend, who was the love of her life, he's now passed away. He was an amazing man. They took care of me from that point on. I don't really remember walking in the house, but I just remember walking into the bedroom and going to sleep. I was in the bed, and my brother, he came over. I hadn't seen him since I told. And he brought me my favorite stuffed monkey. And I just remember laying in the bed, and he came up. Brought me my favorite stuffed monkey. It was a white monkey. And I just felt safe and scared a little bit still, because I was scared of my father. And I remember thinking, like, is this permanent? Like, what if I can't stay here? What if I have to go back to him? Like, I still was unsure of his power over people. And but I stayed there for a long time. I think he knew that he was in trouble and deep. He actually went and checked himself into the pavilion to call himself crazy, and they decided he wasn't. So they discharged him, and he was arrested in the parking lot of the pavilion. And he was then sentenced on April 20th. We went into the sentencing, and I got to read my victim impact statement that I wrote. The judge let me stand right there next to my mother in the back of the court.
She was so strong. Oh my God, she was so strong. And she stood with her little legs shaking right next to me. And she read her statement.
And read it. And my father kept trying to turn around to look at me to say sorry, and someone told him to turn around and shut up.
I wanted to just take his life.
But when he got up to say his piece, we got up and walked out of the room.
We didn't let him talk to us.
He was sentenced to 25 years. The day that he went to prison, I felt strong. My last words to him were that I was never going to speak to him again, and I've held true to that, and I plan to. He's out now, somewhere in Illinois, and I have zero intent to speak to him again.
Did you feel like that would be the last time you'd be a victim?
In my mind, I thought so. I had the world ahead of me The world was my oyster, so they say. And I was the first person in my family to go to college. I went to Ball State University. I had an academic scholarship. I lived in Muncie, Indiana, and graduated with sociology and women's studies with a minor in counseling psychology, and went on to move to Indianapolis and got my master's in social work, focusing on addiction. And in the midst of all of that, I danced big time in a theater, lots of pageants, and really worked on advocating for kids, teenagers, women. I helped start Ball State's victim advocacy group. Anybody who needed it. That was my passion. I wanted to be a helper. I didn't know where my life was headed, but I knew in my heart that it was something really positive in regards to helping people. And then I met my ex-husband. I was a child welfare therapist downtown Indianapolis and decided that I wanted to get into the federal government to work for the VA, but the VA had a hiring freeze. So I went ahead and applied at Terre Haute Federal Prison as a drug treatment specialist. And I met him my first day of orientation. He was a correctional officer. We were just friends at the time. I was in another relationship, and we went to the Federal Academy together, and he always just happened to be around, helping me with my gun, load the bullets into my gun for shooting training, things like that, firearms training. And my other relationship went south, nothing volatile, just it didn't work out. And so at that point, my ex swooped in like my knight in shining armor, and we got together, and it very much at the time felt like a power couple with him. Lots of people respected him. He was stable, so it seemed. He was a protector, and lots of people were intimidated of him. Prior military, black belt in jiu-jitsu. And I liked that he liked me and could protect me. There were red flags that popped out really early on that, looking back, I should have ran. I told him I saw a few red flags. We were in the car, and I said, I like to communicate. I want to communicate with you, and I feel like I'm starting to see some red flags that have me concerned. And his response to that was, "F your red flags." So that was a red flag. If I talked to other guys, even at work, it was a problem. We were at my friend's wedding in 2015, and some people had invited us to go to a bar after the wedding, and I was right there with him holding his hand. And when we got in the car, he said, "What are you, some kind of whore or something?" Because I responded to these guys. And it was a fight the entire way home. And that evening when we got home resulted in him putting his hands around my neck and pushing me on the bed. The next morning, he cried and said, he's never done anything like that before, and that I should leave him, but he'd never done anything like that before. And I, of course, was like, "No, I'm not gonna leave you. I forgive you." And I didn't leave him. Those moments began to, over time, increase just his 0 to 100. It didn't have to have anything to do with me of why he was upset. He could be upset at somebody else, how somebody talked to him. His Facebook picture wasn't uploading correctly. The losing $5 pair of sunglasses in Turkey Run River, doesn't matter what it was, he would explode. I had bought him a journal and wrote him a letter in it. I was trying to help him figure out a way to cope with it and channel it. And he looked at the journal and he hugged me and he said, "I'm gonna ruin you." And that moment replays in my brain all of the time now. Only a couple of red flags happened before we got married. Enough that I probably should have left, but they really came out more so afterwards. His anger really increased to 10 when I was pregnant. I shared an office with a girl and she commented about her concern about how frequently he was mad at me for random stuff. He would scream at me because I needed to go to the hospital. I remember sleeping at 8 months pregnant on the bathroom floor in fetal position. I was so sick, and he was so mad that the doctor wanted me to come in for an IV. He was so angry at me, and I was scared to get in the car with him. His veins would pop out and his spit would be flying because he was so angry. It was explosive anger. When my son was born, I had to kick him out of the hospital room at one point because he was so hateful. I had just had the C-section, and I was scared to go home and pick up my 1-year-old because I'm not supposed to pick anything up over 7 pounds or whatever. And he said, "You just want to be waited on. You're just selfish. You just want to be catered to," etc., etc. I was nursing him, but not getting any sleep, so he had actually offered to feed our son. And I turned around and looked at him, and he had our son perpendicular, not supporting his head. And our son's head was just bobbling around. And he said, "Look at him. What is he, stupid or something? He can't even hold his head up." And it just increased and increased and increased, especially when I got pregnant. I go to the store, smile at the cashier. I go to the gym, talk to people happily, host parties. It looked like we were happy. But I was very silent about how I was actually trapped in this situation. People didn't understand that I was actually becoming very terrified of him. We had an annual tubing trip, and he lost his sunglasses and his flip-flops and screamed and berated me all the way home, drove recklessly, threatened to kill me at one point. Said a lot of very mean things to me, and told me I should be scared of him. And when he got home, I got out of the truck and he chucked the cooler at my head. I had to dodge it. And then he proceeded to break things in the house and shatter mirrors. But I really did love him, and I wanted to keep my family together very much. But I had just had 2 babies by him back to back. I wasn't planning on leaving him, but it was definitely a thought all of the time. I felt trapped because he was scary. I felt trapped because there was nothing I could do there without him hearing about it. Not only was I under his supervision at home, we worked together. So I was under his supervision at work as well. If I didn't go to work, if anything, he was aware while we were together and after we split up. He was aware of my whereabouts all of the time. And he let me know that. He is from that area. He grew up in that area, very well known. Had a lot of admiration from other men there because of what he had done in the military. And he was a really good athlete in his time, so he was he was loved by many. Very, very quiet person, but people held high regard for him. If I did anything, who I talked to, what unit I worked in, if my day was changed up, if I left work early, I never had money left over. He basically controlled the finances. I had my own bank account, but it was my responsibility to pay for childcare, all of childcare, utilities, all of the food, everything except for mortgage. And then he kept a separate account, and he continued to grow that account. And so I became dependent financially on him as well. Like, at what means am I going to be able to leave him? I have no money to leave with, and I have a brand new baby girl and a brand new baby boy. They're a year apart. He informed me that there was a food chain, and he was at the top of it, and I was at the bottom of it. I remember one time he knocked over toothpicks. He knocked over the toothpicks, and both of the babies are over there trying to pick the toothpicks up and put them on the counter to help him, and he screamed at them. Now it's all of the time, constantly. Now I'm protecting the kids from his explosiveness. It used to be a year in between an explosive episode, and now it was daily. I was the team leader of our hostage negotiation team. I really wanted to be a national cadre, which is basically somebody who trains other people to be members of a hostage negotiation team. And I would get to fly out to Denver and train people how to do this. And I was selected. I was asked to do it, and I was selected. So I called him. He was very angry about it. But I believe he didn't believe that I would be selected. So he hangs up on me. He's mad. I am terrified to go home. I have the elevator stomach, just so nervous to go home about what his mood is going to be like that day. And this particular day, for some reason, he worked day shift, so we would see each other as soon as I got home. So get home, take care of the kiddos. He's not speaking to me. At some point, he yells at me in front of them, but I urged him not to do that. So finally, we put the kids to bed, and he begins in on me, screaming at me, why would I do this? He's not going to ride on his wife's coattails. Somebody told me I was special and important. I just want to parade around. I just want to go be a whore in Colorado. I'm just like my dad. At one point, he starts shooting shots like that at me. And he was ordering me to retract and not take the job. And at one point, I told him, fine, I will take it back. I will tell them I can't do it. And then he's like, no, now I'm gonna look like, the problem. And I said I would come up with some excuse. Why? And I sat in the bathroom on the floor and was crying. And he came in there and hovered over me, even after giving him what he wanted, and pointed his finger down at me and said, you are sick. You are sick. What is wrong with you? Look what you did to us. I felt like who is this person that I married? He gets in the bed, and I start to get in the bed. At that moment, he leaned over and grabbed his gun out of his bedstand and pointed it at me, and then put it under his chin and against his temple, in his mouth, against his temple, back under his chin. And he said, this is the last thing I want you to fucking see. And he called me some names. And then he waved the gun and said, get the fuck out of here. And our kid's bedroom is right above us. And I was so stunned, and my mouth went to cotton. I was in disbelief. I felt like I was in a movie. And I walked away, grabbed my own gun, and sat on it on the couch and messaged my best friend. She wanted me to call her, but I told her it wasn't safe. She was going to call the police. I told her not to. And I didn't call the police because of several reasons. When you have a victim situation, a hostage situation, if it is victim focused, meaning the perpetrator is angry at somebody, police presence aggravates them. That's when we see things like suicide by cop. And I didn't want our children at ages 1 and 2 to wake up to this traumatic event. And he said that the day that somebody came to take his gun from him, he would die in a gunfight. I'm still trying to process what the hell just happened. And I remember thinking in that moment, well, I'm going to be divorced. And I went to work like nothing had happened. And at 1 o'clock, when he came into work, my best friend and I went to my place, packed my vehicle down, and I got the babies and I drove home to Mom. And I gave him the ultimatum that he needed to get help, otherwise I would be gone. He showed up and I told her, I don't know how this is gonna go, I'm scared. And so she was ready to call police if necessary. The last time I mentioned something about him pulling a gun on me, he said, I never pulled a gun on you. But he admitted it in court and in marriage counseling. He came and he was very angry, and he got nasty enough at one point that the counselor ended the session a little early, and he continued to say, you made me pull the gun on you. You pushed me to pull the gun on you. It was scary to you, but it was not that big of a deal. I decided it doesn't look like he's gonna get treatment, so I'm probably going to leave him. So I start getting my ducks in a row, figuring out where I'm gonna live, who I'm gonna help me move out. But he knew everything all of the time. He knew conversations that I was so confused. How does he know? I was under surveillance by him. So he had taken one of my old phones that he found in the closet and connected it to the Wi-Fi and hid it away and was watching all of the conversations and emails with everybody that I was having. So he knew I was planning to leave him. He knew where I was moving to. He knew everything, but I did figure it out. And the next day I moved out into my own apartment, and that was when I finally left. That was August 6th of 2020. And that was the day I left and stayed gone. So even though I moved out, I did not feel safe. I felt very uncomfortable. He would drive past my apartment and things out there all the time. Like if I decided to stay home, he would be like, you didn't go to work today. It's believed by some that at one point that he maybe had broken into my apartment while I was sleeping and stole my phone. He said he found my phone out in the yard. There's no way. There's no way. And then the next morning, he brought me a breakfast burrito and coffee and my phone. He even commented on the position I was sleeping in my bed. And I said, how did you see me? And he said, well, you need to fix your blinds. The divorce papers have been filed at this point. Co-parenting's rolling, still very hostile. It was his weekend with the kids, and I had a going away party for work for one of our team members. And one of my friends, whom I was very close to, said that she had felt like going out. So I said, well, you can tag along to this going away party if you want. I had a designated driver to go out to the going away party, The designated driver was my coworker, a guy that I worked with and knew for 8 years and worked really closely with. He apparently invited out his friend or cousin or somebody. Well, one by one, people started to back out, including the person of the going away party, because he had a family emergency. But my designated driver, my friend, and I still decided, well, we're already out, let's have a few drinks. I don't really remember much at all after getting there. And I woke up the next day naked by myself in my apartment. My whole entire body hurt. And my friend came over hysterical and had told me that we had been raped. She said that she could hear him hitting me, but she was like paralyzed and couldn't speak, so, and then she went back out, but when she woke up, she freaked out and left me. She didn't want anybody to know. She just wanted to like bury it. Who is now married to my ex's brother. So she no longer speaks to me because she's, part of the family now. I had blunt force trauma to my face, and I had petechiae, which is a sign of being strangled. We didn't know what happened to my face. I asked the doctor over and over again, is it possible that I just fell? And he said, no, you were punched, maybe thrown, but you were punched. And then I avoided my best friend. And when my best friend saw me, she helped me face the reality of what had just happened. And my friend that was assaulted, she decided to go to the hospital because her injury was getting worse. And so she had a rape kit test done. And at that point, I decided it was time for me to go as well. And I was so scared to tell my ex. He responded well. He was quiet. He didn't freak out. I was shocked. And then just 2 days after telling him, my ex flipped on me, started making fun of me, saying if I was a good mom, I would have just been home and not out having drinks and putting myself in these kinds of situations. And they were both black men. And so my ex made a lot of horrible comments in that regard, used some racial slurs, and told me that my value was less now, that nobody would want me. One of them, I was really, really close to him. I took pictures of his family for him. I trusted him more than my own brother. The other guy I did not know at all. So I don't even know what all happened to me, especially after she left. We had pressed charges. The detectives had a lot of evidence. They felt really confident. They said that we had more evidence than most do. And then the prosecutor said, I'm 100% positive that these are bad guys, but I'm not 100% positive that I'll win the case, so I'm not picking it up. And I lost so much hope in that moment. I felt defeated. When I left him, I became like the town Jezebel. Like people suddenly had a real issue with me, and I was being taunted and made fun of, and rumors were flying. So now we add this onto it. I've been raped. The person that was accused of doing the rape was somebody, or facilitating it at least, was somebody that I work with. So now I'm walking past my ex-husband. I'm walking past my perpetrator, or at least somebody who facilitated the perpetrating. My mental health took a huge plummet. I'm being made fun of at work. Some people suddenly I've slept with everybody. I I'm being called all of the names. All of the rape myths that you hear about start coming out. I felt betrayed by my friends, these people that were supposed to be friends, the thin blue line. These are people who are supposed to be there for me. I'm now, I'm seeing messages and emails being sent from people, and people feel the need to share these things with me. Even the inmates are starting to hear about all of this drama because staff talk and talk and talk and talk. Somebody once said to me, there's a lot of scary people in prison. There are inmates there too. And that really rings out to me in this situation. It was like the inmates were the least of my concern at this point. So I decided it was time to leave the prison. I was informed about a job back here in Rantoul, Illinois for the police department, helping put together their social work program. And so I talked to the person in charge of it, and it was a match made in heaven. But I went ahead and decided to at least interview there. And I interviewed, and it went well. It was a good match, and I decided to take the job. He was very angry about it. He had gotten off work. He was still in his uniform. And he came over to my apartment, had me shoved up against the wall, screaming at me about this move because it was an hour and a half away from him. He had snatched my phone and he's going through it, starts screaming at me because a guy had messaged, but we're divorced at this point. He refuses to leave. We fight for my phone back. We wrestle for my phone back. He won't get out of my house. He starts throwing my childhood abuse in my face in that moment. He's standing kind of by the door, and I'm trying to get him out the door. And he starts saying things like, "You're a really good liar. You learned how to be a good liar when your dad was abusing you." And I should have called the police then. I regret that very much. But then again, he's from that area, and so who's gonna show up? One of his buddies? I don't stand a chance. Finally, I said, "Get out of my house." And he steps back and he looks at me and he says, "You don't have a house." And he goes on to say, "Lawyer up, I'm taking your kids." And his face was terrifying, and I knew he meant it. His family has money. I do not. And it was scary. He never really saw the kids very often anyway. He saw them every other weekend. If he had vacation, he wouldn't want to come get them and keep them because he didn't want his vacation to become my vacation. He wasn't paying child support. I didn't really have a system that was helping me. The police let me down in the assault. I went to the victim impact advocacy place there in Terre Haute. They did nothing. They couldn't help me with legal resources. They couldn't help me with financial resources to help me relocate. And they really explained that they were limited in their ability to help me because I was moving out of state. And then I reach out to a victim advocacy place in Champaign, and they can't help me because my case is coming from Indiana. I really didn't know what to do at this point. I started meeting with attorneys for consultations just to get an idea of how much we were looking. I finally found an attorney that wanted to help me. And it was a $4,000 retainer. And he was guessing it would be about $10,000 altogether to do my case. There's lots of corruption, a lot of things going on all of the time around there. K2, meth, a cell phone, you could probably find one. And those things come in predominantly by staff. I, in fact, helped catch 2 dirty staff members. And both of them were just asked to resign. One of them's married to an inmate now. And it's nothing that I've ever been interested in doing. I never, ever had interested in compromising my integrity or my job. So at this point, I need money to relocate. I need to relocate to get closer to home so I can start this new job. I need money for an attorney to keep my children. So when I was at the point that I was at, and I was being asked by a couple of inmates if I wanted help, I said no. No, no, no. But after I got backed up against a wall, literally, I started to feel desperate and trapped. I wanted out of this hostage situation. So I went in the next day and asked him what exactly would it look like? What would I have to do? He asked me how much I needed for the attorney. I told him. He said it was easy and doable. One of my biggest fears is having my children grow up like I did in the hands of an abuser. So when that risk suddenly felt as though it appeared, I was willing to risk and do anything to protect them. So they cash apped somebody who cash apped somebody who cash apped somebody who cash apped me in different and smaller installments. So I do it, it's done. And I take a few weeks off work. I come back home, celebrate Thanksgiving with my family, take my kiddos to their dads, and he says, "Are you still gonna take that job in Rantoul, Shauna?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Okay, you be careful out there, sweetheart," and winked at me. And it sat with me, which is what he intended. That next day, Monday, I met with my attorney, paid him, had a meeting, and I get a phone call from the prison. It says, "Hey, we understand that your rape did not get taken care of externally, so we would like to go after him internally. Could you come here to the SIS office at 8 a.m. tomorrow?" I said, "Of course." I go in, and they have me in there for 2 hours about, where I have to give in detail the encounter of my assault, my rape. So I go across the street, I'm walking in, they are stopping staff and searching staff. They pull me into a room, search staff, or search me. They're looking in every little nook and cranny possible for something. They don't find anything. I walk out, and the lieutenant's there, and they say, "We need to search your car." They go out and search my car, and I had a couple of cigars. They take my gun, and they take my phone. The same lieutenant that interviewed me about my rape was the same lieutenant that locked me out that day and searched my car. The whole interview about my rape was just a way to make sure that they could do this operation to try to catch me doing something and to lock me out. They didn't have any real intention of going after him internally. And he said, "We were informed by somebody credible that you're bringing contraband in. And that is what this is. And the FBI are on their way and they want to interview you. If you ever tell anybody I said this, I'll call you a liar. But you're being set up." And I didn't even know what to say to him. My life came crashing down. I got afraid to lose my benefits. And so I resigned a few days early. And when I went to resign, they followed me out and said, Shauna, we need to search your car. You just searched my car. They said, well, we were told you have a large amount of money in your car. So they searched my car again. They didn't find any large amounts of money in there because I used it to pay my attorney to keep my children. So I moved back home. I have my kiddos. I'm living with my mother because it is hard to find a place to live, to rent. I had no credit because when I lived with my ex, everything was in his name. Get a job at a hospital, it's going well. Life starts to feel better. I still am a little nervous that they're gonna do something, but I hadn't heard anything from anybody, and everything goes quiet. April 2023, I get a text message from a federal agent saying that they're trying to get a hold of me. That they went by my house and left their business card in my house, and they want to talk to me about my employment at the prison. And they said, well, we're working with a prosecutor and we plan on pressing charges. June 26th, I enter a guilty plea because it was advised by my attorney to do so. It's either that or go through the trauma of a trial. And I know what I did. But it's a blind plea. So in other words, I don't know exactly what my sentence is going to be.
Just kidding.
You never know. But I love you very much. Okay.
I love you. I don't know if you saw my message earlier, but you stand straight up with that head high. You turn that crown straight. You just remember who you are. Okay? You know, the Lord is on your side, and you just be you. And you stand strong. Okay? I got a lot of people with you, babe. Okay?
Thank you. My heart is already beating so fast. I already want to cry. I just want him to be compassionate. I want to move on with my life so bad tomorrow. Today.
It makes me so angry. You can't look at bits and pieces. How can you look at bits and pieces? You have to look at the whole picture.
What she did at the time, I think, was simply a matter of survival. You know, I think she was in a bad corner. She made a choice for her children. I know she knows and regrets what she did. It changes not an iota of how I think of her, how I respect her, how I love her. People sometimes have to make choices in a hard time.
We seem to miss what's happening and what's causing things.
My brother and I went back to her abuser, and now in my situation, my children are going back to my abuser.
And it's not right. It's gotta stop. It's gotta stop. It's not fair.
It's heartbreaking seeing the things knowing the things she's been through, knowing the things she's persevered throughout.
It was a means to an end to get an attorney to escape. Was it a bad decision? Maybe. But I'm going to tell you quite honestly, if it was me in that situation, who's to say I wouldn't have done the same thing? Because quite honestly, the way I got away from my ex-husband could have put me in a much worse situation. Because he left my house because he was at the tip of a knife at his throat. It could have ended a lot worse.
I had to go somewhere else to be okay, which is exactly what happened when I was being molested as a child. I felt re-traumatized in a way. The judge said, like, well, you overcame your trauma as a child without doing illegal activities, so you should have been able to overcome your trauma as an adult. Since they filled the courtroom with prison staff, I think they cheered at one point. That is the day that I was sentenced to a year and a day in federal prison. Tobacco? I messed up. Being a felon is punishment. Probation is punishment. And I just was in such a state of shock that I had no tears at first. Until I thought of my babies. That's when I started to cry. There's not a thing in this world I want to do for them. And I think that this situation proves that a little bit, except for it backfired on me. People have judged me and asked me why I would do something so stupid or risk my freedom when I have children, like I'm putting them in a bad spot. But what people don't understand is I was not free. People have definitely done worse and longer and scarier times. I just need to go in and keep my head down and shut up and write and work out and work because they have jobs there. I really want to continue to work with victims of trauma, of all trauma. And I want to be a support for those who have experienced it. And I want to speak publicly. I want to go speak to our legislators and help fix systems and social justice issues. It is not just me. I am a social worker. I am resourceful. I know the agencies that are around and who to contact, and I still couldn't navigate the system. I've had a monster. I've had another one. And I think of things like, if I can get through that, I can get through this. And my children do need me. I can't lay down now because this is just a year. It's just a blip. They're gonna need me for the rest of their life. So I can't accept it and lay down now.